Varius.
Our boy Tehron is here with us today because not only has he survived cancer, not once, not twice, but 3 times.
If anybody's doubting that God is not real, listen, if anybody's doubting that God is real, this should really confirm that God is real. I don't know what else more you need. Three times for a black man? 3 times. Like, come on, dog. God is
man,
real.
so this is gonna be an inspirational story. I've heard your story, me and you being friends throughout the years, and I'm so happy to be able to share it with the world, because I think that it needs and deserves to be acknowledged, and also provide awareness in our community of what we need to look out for within the cancer community and the knowledge that goes around it. So without further ado, we're gonna go ahead and get right to it. Man, our first question for you, T, is do you feel that being a black man caused a delay in your diagnosis?
So I'm going to start by saying I am fully aware of the disconnect in African Americans and the medical field. That's blatantly clear. But me personally, I would say that I think that I kind of got lucky because I went to the ER 3 o'clock in the morning. It's middle of the night, no one's up. So I got lucky in that sense, that there was no one in front of me to stop me from being able to be seen. Now I think that the issue that I had more so was that the way that I was treated wasn't necessarily the greatest. And I don't know if it was the doctor specific or if it was because I'm black or whatever it is, but I know that I definitely didn't feel like when I found out I had cancer, I don't feel like I was treated the way that you should treat a 21-year-old who's by himself and just found out that he has cancer. But as far as do I feel like my diagnosis took longer because I'm black? No, not in my particular case, but I acknowledge that that's a fact, that it does happen.
I think that's a cool perspective, because a lot of times we get the other side of yes, we did feel this way. I went to this doctor. I had to go to 3, 4, 5 doctors before I can even figure out what was wrong. So I'm glad that you kind of shared a different perspective, that it can happen and it can't happen to us as black people. But also I think you tied in even the treatment does seem similar in a lot of cases that I hear from, friends or family that have, had cancer or just experienced certain things within the medical field. But to go into our next question, when you were diagnosed, were you comfortable kind of to share what you was going through, with your friends or family, or did you not feel comfortable to share what you were going through, or did you kind of just not know how to share it with your friends and family?
For me, it was kind of twofold, right? So I had I had the one side of my mind that's telling me you got to kind of try to play it off so no, they don't freak out, because in my mind, I'm the tough one in the family. I acknowledge it happened to me because God knew I could handle it. But at the same time, I did share it with people. I shared it with my close friends. I shared it with my family. But it was more so to just let them know hey, I just found this out. So I was playing rugby at the time, so I had to let my teammates know. I was hey, I can't play no more. And then I had to let my family know. I might be a jerk because I didn't tell my mom initially, because I wanted her to see that I was okay first. So I told my brother, and I had him tell my other brother and my grandfather, and then I told them not to tell my mom. But for me, it was a whole lot of just trying to determine okay, I could tell these people because they're friends and stuff like that. They care, but it's not as big of a deal as it would be for my family. I know I need to tell my family, but I also want them to be able to see that I'm okay, because like if something were really to happen to me, like I know that they're going to be the ones that are more distraught. So like it was like trying to figure out like a balance of, yes, I should tell people who I'm close to, but at the same time I need to tell the people who like really need to know, but I want them to know that I'm okay. And that was initially, because it did get worse from there, but overall I think I just kind of had a balancing act that I had to figure out of like, okay, like these are the people that I can tell like, hey, I'm something's wrong. These are the people I can say like, listen, I need to tell you like I have cancer, like they said it's pretty bad, etc. And then these are the people like, look, I got cancer, but I'm okay. Look at me, I'm here. But all of that was kind of after like I was able to like, I don't know, like figure it out, like, because when you hear something like that, it's not really something that you process quickly. It's more so like, hold on, get out of here. Like, I don't understand. Like, run that back. So like, once I got past that part, then I could kind of start the process and tell the people that I felt like I needed to tell. But eventually I told most people, like most of the people on campus, because I still went to school. I didn't drop out of school. I probably should have, because I failed everything. But I did end up getting my degree. Just putting that out there, so y'all don't think I did that bad.
Full disclosure.
An educated Black man. Woo woo! Shout out to you.
But it just, in time, I got more comfortable telling people, and then beyond that, I started realizing like, okay, like my story can actually help somebody. So like, there's been multiple people that I've found that have had cancer that I've had those conversations with, and just kind of give them my story, because even if you just hear a little bit of my story, there's hope in that. So yeah, so long story short, it was a process from the beginning, where it was kind of like, I don't know how to tell people, to kind of getting more comfortable in that, and then to a point where I feel like it's my right, or it's my duty to tell people. Like I feel almost obligated to share my story.
Okay, so aside from picking and choosing who you felt that you needed to tell first, give us a little backstory of how you got diagnosed, and then let us know what your first reaction was, especially if you said that you were 21, you went to the hospital at 3 a.m, you were there by yourself, and you didn't get treated the way you felt as though you should have been treated. Like, kind of go deep into that, so we can kind of like really understand your story, and really understand how that could really impact someone else if they're in the same exact situation. If they just go to the hospital and they find out they got cancer and they're there by themselves.
Right. So, backstory, I was like I said, I was playing rugby at the time, and I was practicing. We were doing like conditioning, and for whatever reason, like everybody's running. We're doing all these regular drills, stuff that I did the year before, but I can't do it now. I'm having chest pains and stuff like that, right? And like all my friends are joking and making fun of me because they think I'm out of shape, and I was like, I guess I am out of shape. I know I didn't work out over the summer, so I just worked that whole summer. So I knew I did definitely gain some weight, got out of shape, but I didn't know it was that bad. And then we come to find out, I got hit around the neck one night at practice, and I didn't think anything of it. It was a new kid. We just told him like, you can't do that. And then later that night, I got up like 2-3 o'clock in the morning to use the restroom. I go in there, I use the restroom, I'm washing my hands. I look up in the mirror, and my neck is swollen about half the size of my fist. Like, y'all can see my hand, like it's not small. So like my neck was real swollen. So I just freaked out and I went to the ER. So I get to the ER and I start telling them this and that. And they're like, all right, well, we'll get you back. So I wait a little bit. It wasn't too long, maybe 20-30 minutes. Because like I said, there wasn't a whole lot of people there. And I get back there and they say, all right, well, we're going to run some tests, this and that. So they start doing blood work and some other tests. And they ended up doing a CAT scan because they could see the swelling. They were trying to make sure they knew what it was. So I do that. I go back for the CAT scan. They messed up. They spilled the ink all over me somehow. So they ended up having to give me one of their a set of scrubs because they destroyed my shirt. But ultimately, I get through the CAT scan, and then like I sit in this room for like an hour by myself. Yeah, probably about an hour, maybe a little longer. And then the doctor comes in. He was like, "All right, so Mr. Jacobs, your CAT scan was terrible." I said, "What?" He's like, "Yeah, your CAT scan came back terrible. You have lymphoma." And I was like, "Hold on." I was like, I'm not like." I was like, "What is that?" He's like, "You have cancer." I said, "How?" He said, "It just happens." And then I'm just kind of staring off because, like, again, I told you I'm 21 years old. I'm in the ER in the middle of the night. It's probably like 4 o'clock in the morning right now. And I'm just sitting there. And he was like, "I'm sure you got a lot to think about, so I'll leave you alone." He just left. He didn't give me an opportunity to ask any more questions. He just left. And then I'm sitting in that room probably another 30 minutes, just kind of like mind blown. Like, I start crying. I start trying to figure out like what's happening because this dude just walks in the room and basically says, "All right, sir, you're about to die." Right? He doesn't give me any context. He doesn't tell me like necessarily like what are my chances. None of those conversations happen. The only thing he gave me as far as context to it, he was like, "You have tumors all throughout your body, your upper body, excuse me." So like I'm just trying to process this. Like I said, like I'm in a room by myself, 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning, trying to process some dude coming in here and just telling me I have cancer without giving me any kind of like, "It's gonna be okay, we're gonna help you," like none of that. So for me, it was just tough. It was a couple6 within that day or that time frame at night because I guess probably 5, 6 o'clock, they're like, "All right, well, we're going to run some more tests. We need to see like exactly how bad everything is and this and that." So I do some more tests. And then I was like, "All right, well, can I like," they're like, "We're going to admit you to the hospital." I was like, "Well, can I go get my stuff?" They're like, "No, you can't leave." I'm like, "Bro, you just told me I have cancer. It's not like I'm not going to come back. Like, I acknowledge this is where I need to be, but like I would like to get like a change of clothes or something." They wouldn't let me leave. And then they would like give me the runaround, like trying to make sure I had insurance and all this stuff. I'm like, yes, I have insurance. This all this. Like I'm still under my mom's insurance at that time. And then they admit me, do all this other stuff, and they're like, "All right, now we need to check you for HIV and all this stuff." I'm like, "What's that got to do with anything?" They're like, "Well, we got to check you because if you have HIV, there's going to be a different treatment than this." I was like, "I can assure you it don't." But they do all that stuff too. So I'm like, "All right, whatever." And then they come back and they start telling me, "All right," like they kind of break it down for me now. So I got a new doctor. It's not an ER doctor. It's actual like oncologist. I'm actually admitted to the hospital, and they started breaking it down for me, giving me insight into like how bad it actually is. And initially they tell me, "All right, sir, so you have tumors all throughout your upper body, from your abdomen all the way up to your neck. You have a tumor that's laying in your chest that is 10 millimeters or 10 centimeters by 10 centimeters wide and large, which after measurement is roughly the size of my fist again. So it was laying on my heart. And they were like, if you were any smaller, you would have been hospitalized a few months ago." So the fact that I'm 6'6" and at the time probably almost 300 pounds gave me the benefit of having a large enough cavity in my chest for this tumor to lay and not cause me massive pain when I'm not doing anything. But the reason that it was bothering me while I was running is because all that excessive exercise, all that running and stuff makes your lungs expand, your heart beat harder, and there wasn't enough space for it then. So that's why my chest kept hurting when I was doing my exercises and stuff. But I mean, that's really kind of what it ended up being. So they told me I had to have surgery, and so I got admitted, I think about 7 o'clock that morning, and then I didn't leave until like 2 o'clock. Then not that upcoming day, but the day after, because I had to have surgery the next morning.
And you managed to keep the surgery hidden from your mom?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, so I thought I did. I can't ask her now because my mom passed away this past year, but she tried to give me some sly words at one point, tried to say like she knew But I'm assuming my brother probably did tell her, which is fine. Like I get it, but I did want her to see me first, just because like I'm her baby. You know what I mean, like, I want her to know like, Mom, I'm all right. Like,
okay. Yeah.
Yeah, but that was my first surgery. I woke up in the middle of it. It was terrifying. I would never go back to that hospital.
What hospital?
It used to be called Fairmont General. It's something else now. I probably shouldn't be talking about it. They're probably gonna try to sue me, but it's not. I don't blame the hospital per se. Mm-hmm. I just have a bad feeling about it. I can't go back there. I mean, you wait, like, and I'm sure that's a normal thing. Like, I'm sure that other people do it, but like, I'm a big dude, so like, when waking up in surgery, like, I freaked out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But it was definitely a tough experience, just being there by myself, not having anybody that is actually like can like give me a hug or like pat me on the back, but like, you're gonna be all right. I called my brother. Like, it was like probably like 5:30 in the morning when I try to reach my brother, and my brother never gets up that early. Well, he does now, but back then he never gets up that early. He answered my call, and like, so I was like, wow, that's strange. So he was the first person I actually got to say the words to, and it's just, I mean, it's still tough sometimes. Like, I still have a hard time like just processing it. Because for a long time I didn't really expect to be here still. Like, you know what I mean? Like, going up on another birthday, like, I didn't think I was gonna have it anymore. So it's definitely there's times where it's still tough.
Well, I want to expand on that though, T. I want to kind of unpack that a little bit more, because I mean, you talked about the type of cancer that you had, which is lymphoma, which is a rare case. Now, tell us, I mean, because there's some black folks out here, you know what I mean, or just some people out here that just don't know what lymphoma is, you know what I'm saying, and that are ignorant to it. If you don't mind, you kind of explain, I guess, what lymphoma is, how it kind of is another extreme of cancer, just the differences with it, whatever you can explain about it, please explain that. And then also in the midst of that, tell us, I guess, because you spoke on how it had a mental effect on you and how it affected your mental health. How did the process, tell us about the process, about the chemo, how did that go, and just the mental draining that it took on you. If you don't mind, take us down that journey with us.
Yeah, so so the first part is like, so what lymphoma is, so there's different kinds of lymphoma, right? There's multiple lymphatic cancers. I had Hodgkin's lymphoma. Hodgkin's lymphoma it's just it's a blood cancer. It attacks your lymphatic cells. So everybody has lymph nodes in their body, and most people acknowledge those when they get sick. They get swelling in their throat or their side of their neck. It's a little lump that they get. It kind of feels like a big kidney bean. But those are your lymph nodes. So for me, basically, cancerous cells ended up in my lymph nodes, and then your lymph nodes, since they're all over your body, it easily spreads from lymph node to lymph node. So again, my lymph nodes from my lower abdomen all the way up to my neck. Pretty much I had cancer all throughout. So they diagnosed me with borderline stage 4. And what that meant is what they explained to me. What that is that stage 4 means that you have cancer in your bones. So when they say like, oh, there's no such thing as big bone, like it really is, because like they had a hard time getting into my bones to be able to determine how much I actually had in my bones. So it's like throughout the process, like, and this will kind of play in later, but like I had 3 bone marrow biopsies. And those were used to determine like, okay, is it still in the bones? How bad is it? Is it okay? Whatever. But that was kind of like that stage 4, like, and they basically were like, okay, well, we see that there is some, but it's not necessarily bad enough for us to consider stage 4. We're going to say you're stage 3. So that was kind of how my thing went. And again, lymphoma, it can be anywhere in the body because you have lymph nodes literally all throughout. So if you ever catch like swelling in your like clavicle area or under your arm, things of that nature, like those are your lymph nodes that are swelling, and they're basically trying to help you fight away whatever's making you sick. But for me, it was just a little stronger than what it can fight. Right. So as far as like my process of how I went through everything and how it kind of played with me mentally, I got pretty depressed at first, just because I was kind of alone. I was living alone, and I'm maybe too prideful, which I think is a plight that many African Americans have. And for me, I know that I had a hard time even like asking for like help for little stuff, let alone like I just need somebody to be there for me. So for me, it was a rough time mentally for a couple of months after finding out I was sick. But I always try to maintain a strong face. You know what I mean? Try to put on a good face for everybody else, because I felt like that was my job. You know what I mean? I don't want everybody seeing that I'm hurting or seeing that I'm not doing well. So I did my best to do that. And then I actually switched hospitals because, like I said, I didn't want to stay at that hospital. I don't want to say I didn't trust them, but I just had a bad vibe. Because I guess they the ones who told me I had cancer. I wouldn't really want to be there anymore. So I switched hospitals to another local hospital, and the initial hospital told me I had a 60% chance of going in remission. I did the first 2 bone marrow biopsies at the new hospital, and they were like, "All right, it's pretty bad. You actually had like a 20% chance of going into remission." And remission is basically your cancer going away and you having healthy cells again. So I went from having a 60% chance of going into remission to 20% chance within the matter of like 3 weeks, which is the difference between the point that I found out and the point that I picked the hospital, got all my new tests and test results back. So that was a pretty big hit as well. But I tried to do everything I could. So I figured I was going to lose my hair. So I shaved my head before I lost my hair. So I shaved my head thinking like that was going to help me. Like I'm trying to take control of whatever I can control. Because I don't know that I have control issues. I would say I probably do, but I know at that point where I felt so helpless, I felt like it was needed. I needed to find a way to take control of whatever I could. So I shaved my head, and then I didn't end up losing my hair. So that was pointless. And then I started treatments and all this stuff. So I started treatments. I started going through chemotherapy every other week. The first couple treatments were they sucked, but they were okay. Like I didn't get as sick as I started getting later on. But the way I explain chemo is kind of like the worst hangover you ever had, but it stays for like 5 days. So it's like that nauseous feeling, like your insides just don't feel like they want to settle. You're tired all the time. You don't really want to get up and do anything. You don't really want to eat. But they were telling me like you have to make sure you eat. You have to make sure that you're getting protein. You need to keep up your strength. So I'm probably like the first person to ever have cancer and gain weight. Because like I was like, you tell me to eat, cool, I'm gonna eat. Because I was a culinary student, so I knew how to cook. So like I would make like big bowls of or big pots of like pasta or chili or lasagna or something like that. I would make that the day before chemo because I knew I wouldn't want to cook for a couple of days. So I would just make that, and that's what I would eat for the rest of the week after chemo. So I would eat like the same thing from like Wednesday chemo all the way to like Sunday, and I would feel a little bit better on Monday. So I would maybe start eating something different if I had food. But I think the real thing that really got me mentally is that I couldn't. I was battling with trying to like look like I'm okay, but feeling like I'm not all the time. And I think that kind of hurt me because I think when you try to play like everything's all right, even though you know it's not, I think that that can drain you, right? It's like that. It's like I'm putting on this smile, but inside I'm crying, like, you know, like tears of a clown, like Smokey Robinson, right? So like when you think of that, like, okay, like I look like everything's all right, but like inside, like I'm crying real bad, and like it's tough to try to force yourself to deal with both of those sides. So at some point, it's really going to be like, okay, I'm either going to go this way or that way. So I would force myself to, like, I would wear like dress clothes and stuff like that to school. Like, again, I'm in college, so like I'm like probably looking like a big weirdo, but it's cool. Like I'm doing it because I always felt like if you dress good, you feel good, right? So that's just kind of the mentality I always had. My grandfather used to always dress to the nines. So I thought, all right, like that's how it is. So I would dress up on those days that I really felt bad, but I still wanted to try to go to class. And then eventually I just couldn't do it no more. So that's how I ended up failing pretty much 9 out of 10 classes that year and a half that I was still taking multiple classes. But I think for me, it was just dealing with it in a way to try to find ways to like get past it. And it was just hard, and it's draining, and then that draining turns into sadness, and then that sadness turns into depression, and then all that kind of just sits on you. But I do think that the one thing that kind of helped me out is I started realizing that like all the other stuff ain't all that serious, right? So all those trivial things that really be getting under your skin, like that don't bother me no more, because I realized like life is hard, bro. Like there's a lot more things out there that can put you on the ground and just stomp on you. So I'm not gonna let this be one of them. So like I started joking about stuff, making fun of stuff. I had a bunch of friends that get mad at me because I started making fun of like myself having cancer. Like for Halloween one year, I was like, I'm gonna be a cancer patient. I had a whole bunch of people getting real mad at me. But I was like, that's how I dealt with it. I dealt with it through humor. I started making fun of things. I started trying to like make things not be so heavy, right? So that was kind of how I dealt with it. I mean, Jerome, you know me, man. Like I be not always acting. I be acting up sometimes, but that's just how I deal. That's how I deal with things sometimes. But yeah, I hope I answered your question, man. It was a lot. It was a lot, and the only way that I kind of got through it was just by making up ways to get through it. As far as my treatments, like I've had chemo. I had a lot of chemo. I had radiation, and I've had a stem cell transplant. All of those which are tough. If I'm to pick one that is easier, radiation was easier for me. I'm not saying it's easy. By no means is it easy, but it was easier for me. It didn't make me feel as sick, but I did get it on my chest. So it burned the skin on my chest, and it messed up my esophagus, so I couldn't really swallow. So they had to give me like liquid lidocaine, and I would have to shoot it in the back of my throat to numb my throat so I could swallow. But then they're like, you got to be careful because you might swallow your tongue. And I'm like, bro, like you should probably like we got to find a way around all this. But yeah, it was tough though. So like the stem cell transplant was probably the hardest thing I ever been through in my life. No, losing my mom was probably the hardest thing I ever been through. So that was probably the second hardest thing I ever been through. And like to the point where like I was like, I can't do this no more. Like I've never really been one for like, I don't want to be here no more. But that was probably the one time that I was like, I can't do it. I couldn't stand. I couldn't walk on my own. I couldn't get out of my bed, and it got the best of me for a little bit. And like you were saying at the beginning, beforehand, like God is real, and I know God is real because one day during my transplant, I was in there and I couldn't get up, so they gave me like a little urinal bottle, so I had to use a urinal bottle, and I tried to sit it down, and I just fell. I blacked out. I fell, hit my head off the ground, and you know the grounds in hospitals, like that's like hard tile. Yeah. So like I fall, I get myself back up to the bed, and I hit the little buzzer, and I start like calling for help, and like 7 people rush in my room. They help me get back on the bed, And then they're like, oh, we got to get a CAT scan. He hit his head, da da da. So they run me down for a CAT scan. While they're running me down for the CAT scan, I'm joking again. I'm feeling more like myself than I had in a long time at that point. And like for me, like I put it on everything. I feel like I was at that point where I was about to give up, and God was like, "It's not time. Like you can't. Like not yet." So I genuinely, I say it like this. He smacked me in the back of my head. I fell. I get back up, and then like it was like, all right, time to keep it moving. And that was the point that turned it around for me. Like I genuinely started feeling better from that moment. And like I started getting better, and then I got up out of there, and then my cancer came back, but it wasn't nearly as bad. I just had to have some radiation in it, and I kicked it, and then I've been cancer free since February 29th of 2012.
Shout out to you. And it's also, that should let you know God is real too. You've been cancer free since February 29th. How many times does February 29th come? You know what I'm saying? Like that's a date that you never forget. You know what I'm saying? God is extremely intentional. And I do pray, man, that people listen to this. If anybody's doubting God is real, this should really show you, like, God is definitely real, for sure.
Ooh.
Yes.
So I guess I feel like I don't want to start to wrap it up, but I feel like there's so much more that like you can like share and stuff like that.
Bring me back.
Yeah, exactly. Yep, we just gonna bring you right on back. But
this is kind of part 2.
Yeah, maybe
I got a lot of questions.
Yeah. So just to wrap it up for today, I'll ask, you know, one, I think I'm gonna ask like a 2-part question. So one, we know like you're a 3-time cancer survivor. Mentally, I feel like that has to be tough to have to go through that multiple times. So kind of, if you don't mind, can you kind of share how you really able to like find the strength to like go through whatever you had to go through, you know, when the cancer came back? And then the second part is just what things would you tell someone who has recently been diagnosed with cancer? Like, you know, what do you feel like someone could have told you in that moment that might have made some type of difference?
So the first part of your question, how do you deal with it? So like for me, the first time I got cancer, I did roughly like 7 months worth of chemo and then a month of radiation. And like, according to my doctors, like that was supposed to kick it, right? But my cancer came back 3 months later. So when I came in for my next checkup, which was 3 months, it's like, it's back. It's like, okay. So for me, like, I don't think I had a long enough gap to really like let it like hit me that hard. So it was more so like, all right, I got a little vacation from treatment. So like to me, like those first 2 times were almost the same. It's almost like this is just a continuation of this last one. The treatment just kind of got a little harder. Because another thing I want to point out is like, so like when you have cancer and you do a treatment, you can't do that treatment again. So like if I do treatment for like 6 months of a specific chemo, if it comes back, I can't go back on that same chemo. My body's adjusted to that. It's not going to work. So you have to do something stronger. So when it came back, I had to do something stronger. So I ended up doing, I want to say it was called busulfane. And that did like a clinical stuff. Like they asked if I wanted to be in like a clinical trial and all this stuff, because they were like, all right, well, we're going to do the chemo and then we're going to do your transplant. And if you want to join this study or trial or whatever, I was like, okay. So I was like, sure, I'll do it. So I did it. And like they basically try to figure out how much of that specific chemo they can give you for your weight, your height, your blah, 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 without like basically killing you, like, right? So like the stem cell transplant is basically meant to break you down almost completely, and then they give you stem cells to build you back up. So that was tough. And then the third time that I got it was probably the hardest, even though it was the easiest treatment, because I was clean for 11 months. And then I went back for my 11th month checkup, and they're like, it was back. And like for me, that was like getting punched in the face. And y'all know me, stature wise, ain't nobody really punching me in my face. So like it was tough.
You know.
So,
yeah, bro. Like I can't even reach your face, so I know I can't even punch your face. So it's rare.
Right. So like it was hard. That was definitely hard for me to deal with, and it was just because like I had spent so much time coming back and getting these checkups, and like you get to that point where you're comfortable and you're like, all right, I'm good. I'm finally good. And then it's like boom, and you get hit again, and it's like that's a knockout punch. But luckily that one was the easiest treatment. It was radiation. It was just, and I say it was the easiest because it wasn't chemo and radiation. It wasn't a stem cell transplant again. It was just radiation, and it was just under my arm. So like out of the 3 battles, that was the easiest to win, like so to speak. So like for me, it definitely hurt me a little bit every time. But I think over time you start realizing like, I just got to do what I got to do. I remember at one point telling my mom, I was like, I'm not getting no more treatment. Just because you're like, at some point you're like, I don't want to do this no more. Like, if it's my time, it's my time. So like, I acknowledge that. I'm not afraid to go. If God calls me home, I know that's my time, and I'm okay with that. But I also think that it's important to fight for your time. Like, okay, like at some point, like I realized, like even after I said, like I don't want to do no more treatment, I was like, nah, that's stupid. Like, why would I give up? Like I was still in my 20s. Like, at what point do you say, yeah, I'm not really about that whole giving up thing, right? So, I think when I got to that mentality, it was like I'm not ready to give up. Like that was what got me through. That would help me push. And then beyond that, just knowing like, yes, it sucks, it gets hard and everything like that, but like my family counts on me. You know what I mean? My mom counted on me. My grandfather was counting on me. Like I got people who love me. Like I'm not willing to be selfish enough to just be like, I'm sorry, y'all, I don't want to do this no more. Because I mean, that's absolutely selfish, in my opinion. And I can only speak for my opinion, but that's, in my opinion, that's selfish. If you're not willing to fight, then, I mean, so be it. But that's you're taking that out of your loved one's control. And then your second part of your question was more so about what would I say to somebody. And for me, the one thing that I always tell people that tell me they have cancer or their loved one has cancer, to tell them to try to do your best to be positive. So like, I was a very pessimistic person for a very long time. I had people who I talked to in the last couple of years that knew me back when I started college before I got sick, and they were like, yo, you were a jerk. And I never acknowledged that I was like outwardly rude or mean or whatever, or just an angry black man like they say, but like I acknowledged that I was more so negative. Because I mean, like you kind of grow up in a situation where you ain't got a whole lot. Like there's not a whole lot to be like all that happy about. You know what I mean? But going through the things that I've gone through made me realize that my mindset is part of what poisons me. Having a negative mindset, and only a negative mindset, is poison to the body. I assure you.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to say that I'm the most optimistic person, but I definitely say that I'm a realist and I see things how they are. Not necessarily how I hope they'll be. I will hope for something, but I acknowledge what's fact. And then I'm going to work towards making what I want to be fact. But what I'll say is my biggest thing that I always tell people is try to surround yourself with positivity. Try to think positively. And try to do whatever you can do to make yourself laugh, to enjoy whatever time you got, because it can go. It can go at any moment. And I'm not saying this to make you scared. You shouldn't fear death, but I'm also acknowledging that you should acknowledge that it's there for everybody. But you should do what you can do to smile, to laugh, to enjoy any little moment you can enjoy, because it helps. In my personal opinion, positivity helps. The power of positive thinking is a vastly stronger medicine than a lot of things out there. Now, don't get me wrong. I know there's medicines out there that help people, but I'm saying the powers of positivity has the ability to do amazing things. So like, think about it like this. So when natural disasters happen or these bad things happen in the world, and then you have groups of people who normally don't always see eye to eye, they come together and then miracles happen, these amazing things happen, right? That's through positivity. People say, okay, this bad stuff happened, we need to come together. So we need to do this or we need to do that, and we need to be as unified as we can. We need to see things in a certain light. That's when the best things happen. So what's different from your body, right? So your body acknowledges positive vibes and it feeds off of those, but it also feeds off of negative vibes. So if you're feeding yourself all this negativity, that's when you're going to start getting more and more depressed. And that's what I saw in myself. I saw every time that I allowed myself to feel negative or sad, or not necessarily just sad, but like negative or like down on myself, like, man, I can't believe this is me, woe is me, all this stuff, why me? That's when I started feeling the worst. But when I said, I got this, I'm going to make it through, I'm going to see another day. Yeah, I mean, those are the things that kind of help me push. So if I could say anything to anybody who's dealing with this or who just knows somebody who's dealing with it, do your best to support them, make them see the positive. Try to show them that there is still something to smile about, because I do think it helps.
Amen to that.
Yeah,
brother.
Yep.
I'm trying to tell you, man, one episode just doesn't do it justice, man.
Not at all.
There's so many questions that has that can come out of this. Like, I mean, just about the after effects. I mean, the thing is that you've been through that 3 times. And the fact that one thing that sticks out to me that you've always told me throughout our friendship is that you were told that you would never have kids. Mm-hmm. And now look at you. You know what I'm saying? You're proud papa. You know what I'm saying?
You're out here hollering at you all day.
You're a daddy.
You're tired, but you're a daddy.
You are a father.
Right, absolutely. Beautiful baby girl.
Yeah, man.
Absolutely.
And it's just a beautiful thing, like you said, when you keep that positivity, and you keep that mojo going. And I think that you're just constantly growing from that. And I'm just proud of you, man. Just of your strength and your journey, because it's a lot of people that's gonna really appreciate this, man, once we get this out here. But this is a good tail end of our discussion here today. On behalf of India Renee and Chanel Lanice, man, and the Book of Us, man, we appreciate you, man. For real, man.
I appreciate y'all.
We needed this.
Yeah,
for sure. We
really needed this. So thank you, man. Thank you.
Absolutely, absolutely. You know, it's a love. I appreciate y'all letting me come out here and just say, speak my piece. Yeah, man. I appreciate y'all.
Yeah, man. Any shout outs? Any quick shout outs you want to make before you dip?
I'm gonna do a quick shout out to my daughter, who I'm gonna make sure she watches this, because I'm gonna save it and she's gonna be able to see that. Oh, there's my daddy. Amy Jane. And a shout out to my other daughter, who's not quite here yet, Mia Michelle, who's named after my mother. And Michelle was my mom's middle name. So we having another little girl, and she's gonna be here in October. So I'm blessed to see that as well. But yeah, man, I appreciate everything that y'all do and just a group and allowing me to come out here and just say what I gotta say, and I'll be happy to come back anytime. Because it's definitely something that needs to be talked about, right? So like, people don't talk about the bad things. They always, you look on Facebook and all you see is like, oh, I did this, I did that. Like, we went here. Like, that's not life. That's not life. That's not
at all.
That's not how it really works. That's what you show everybody, but that's not how it really works. There's darkness everywhere, but there's also light. And I think that we gotta show people the light, so that everything that happens after the fact, right, after the darkness, so we can kind of help them get out of it. Because this now, like us having this conversation, this is a light. I saw the dark. I've been through the dark. This is a light. This is the opportunity to help other people get out of the dark by saying, "Oh, I'm not the only one. I'm not alone." That's the big thing, right? So this y'all are blessing a lot of people right now by giving them opportunities to see and hear the things that y'all talk about.
Oh man, appreciate you,
Thank
dog.
you.
On it. That's the goal. Thank you for seeing it. Thank you for seeing our vision and for understanding it and for wanting to be a part of it, man. That's major. Thank you.
Show, man. Hey, man. Hey, and on that note, I'm gonna leave our peoples with this, man. There is a light that shines special for you and me.
And then when you started singing, the light just started to go dim. It just slowly.
You sounded good, bitch. Don't worry, you sounded good.
Hey man, y'all leave my little brother alone, man. I love that dude.
Hey, look, y'all. As soon as I started singing, hey, look. As soon as I started singing, the light said.
Like, bruh, like we not gonna shine bright for you. We're not doing that.
Oh man. But always, man, thank you, bro. As always, y'all, to the listeners, to the viewers, be motivated, be great, be encouraged. And to the many and to the few, embrace the book of you. We'll see y'all next time.
Ooh.
The Varius